Welcome to Framework, the podcast that makes the NIST cybersecurity framework practical, engaging, and accessible. Whether you're a cybersecurity professional, business leader, or simply curious about how organizations defend against cyber threats, this series is for you. This podcast is inspired by a comprehensive guide to the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0, a best-selling resource written by cybersecurity expert Dr. Jason Edwards and trusted by professionals worldwide. In each episode, we'll leverage a few insights from Jason's extensive book to dive deep into CSF 2.0, unpacking every function, category, and subcategory with real-world applications you can immediately use. If you're enjoying this episode and want to learn more, head over to cyberauthor.me to grab your copy of the book and access additional resources to enhance your cybersecurity journey. You can also visit baremetalcyber.com, where over 2 million people last year explored expert insights, articles, and practical tools across a wide range of cybersecurity topics. GV.OC-01 Organizational Cybersecurity Risk Governance is established. GV.OC-01 ensures that organizations establish structured governance mechanisms for managing cybersecurity risks at the organizational level. This subcategory belongs to the Govern function within the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework, version 2.0, emphasizing that cybersecurity is a business priority that requires leadership oversight, strategic decision-making, and enterprise-wide accountability. Without clear cybersecurity risk governance, organizations struggle to align security efforts with business objectives, allocate resources effectively, and respond to emerging cyber threats with confidence. Establishing organizational cybersecurity risk governance ensures that leadership teams, security professionals, and business stakeholders work together to create a cybersecurity strategy that aligns with organizational priorities and risk tolerance. Effective governance structures provide a clear chain of accountability, defined security policies, and a structured framework for making cybersecurity decisions. Organizations that implement governance mechanisms enhance security resilience, ensure compliance with regulatory requirements, and improve risk-based decision-making. Multiple stakeholders play a critical role in cybersecurity risk governance. Executive leadership and board members establish strategic cybersecurity objectives, allocate funding, and oversee risk management initiatives. Chief information security officers and security teams implement technical controls, monitor cyber risks, and align security strategies with business goals. Compliance officers and legal teams ensure that governance efforts comply with industry regulations, data protection laws, and cybersecurity best practices, preventing legal and financial penalties. Organizational cybersecurity risk governance is established through formal governance frameworks, risk management policies, and leadership-driven security strategies. This includes defining cybersecurity roles and responsibilities, integrating security into business operations, and establishing continuous risk monitoring mechanisms. Organizations that fail to implement structured cybersecurity governance risk misaligned security priorities, uncoordinated risk responses, and increased exposure to cyber threats, reducing their ability to protect business-critical assets and customer data. Several key terms define cybersecurity risk governance and its role in organizational security. Risk appetite refers to the level of cybersecurity risk an organization is willing to accept in pursuit of its business goals. Cybersecurity steering committees are leadership groups responsible for overseeing cybersecurity policies, reviewing security incidents, and driving risk-based decision-making. Enterprise Risk Management, ERM, integrates cybersecurity into broader risk management strategies, ensuring that cyber risks are addressed alongside financial, operational, and compliance risks. Maturity models assess how well an organization implements cybersecurity governance practices, providing a roadmap for continuous improvement. Risk reporting frameworks define how cyber risks are communicated to executive leadership, board members, and external stakeholders to ensure informed decision-making. Misconceptions about cybersecurity risk governance often lead to poor alignment between security and business operations, ineffective risk management, and lack of executive oversight. One common issue is assuming that cybersecurity governance is purely an IT responsibility rather than a business-wide initiative that requires leadership engagement and cross-functional collaboration. Another issue is failing to integrate cybersecurity governance into enterprise risk management, leaving cybersecurity risks isolated from broader business concerns. Some organizations mistakenly believe that compliance with security regulations alone is sufficient for governance, without realizing that effective cybersecurity governance requires continuous monitoring, strategic planning, and proactive risk mitigation. When organizations establish cybersecurity risk governance, they improve security decision-making, align cybersecurity with business objectives, and enhance resilience against cyber threats. Well-defined governance structures ensure that security leaders have the authority and resources to implement effective controls, executive leadership is engaged in risk oversight, and cybersecurity priorities support overall business success. Organizations that implement strong cybersecurity governance frameworks enhance stakeholder trust, regulatory compliance, and long-term risk management capabilities, positioning themselves for sustained cybersecurity success in an evolving threat landscape. Organizations that fail to establish cybersecurity risk governance face significant operational, financial, and reputational risks. Without clear governance structures, organizations struggle to prioritize security investments, enforce policies, and respond to emerging cyber threats effectively. A common risk is misalignment between cybersecurity and business strategy, where security teams operate in isolation, leading to fragmented risk management efforts and inefficient resource allocation. Another issue is lack of executive oversight, where leadership fails to engage in cybersecurity decision-making, increasing the likelihood of regulatory non-compliance, security breaches, and reactive crisis management instead of proactive risk mitigation. By implementing strong cybersecurity risk governance, organizations ensure a structured, well-coordinated approach to managing cyber risks, aligning security efforts with business goals, and improving threat resilience. Clear governance frameworks empower security leaders, enhance accountability, and integrate cybersecurity into overall enterprise risk management. Organizations that establish formalized governance structures, conduct regular risk assessments, and engage executive leadership in cybersecurity oversight are better equipped to identify vulnerabilities, allocate resources effectively, and adapt to evolving cyber threats with confidence. At the partial tier, organizations lack formal governance structures, cybersecurity policies, or risk management frameworks, leading to reactive security practices. Cyber risks are managed inconsistently across departments, with no clear leadership oversight or strategic planning. A small business at this level may rely solely on an IT manager to handle security concerns, without executive engagement, formal risk assessments, or cybersecurity funding, leaving the organization vulnerable to security gaps and uncoordinated risk responses. At the risk-informed tier, organizations begin to develop governance structures and define cybersecurity leadership roles, ensuring that security responsibilities are partially integrated into enterprise risk management. However, governance may still be inconsistent, with cybersecurity risk discussions occurring irregularly at the executive level. A mid-sized company at this level may establish a cybersecurity committee that meets quarterly, but lacks a structured framework for continuous risk monitoring and executive reporting, leading to gaps in long-term risk planning. At the repeatable tier, organizations have formalized governance structures, well-defined cybersecurity leadership roles, and integrated risk management processes. Security teams regularly assess cyber risks, update governance frameworks, and report findings to executive leadership, ensuring that cybersecurity is aligned with business strategy and compliance requirements. A financial institution at this stage may implement risk-based decision-making frameworks, conduct annual cybersecurity governance audits, and ensure that security policies are enforced enterprise-wide to reduce the risk of regulatory fines and financial losses due to cyber incidents. At the adaptive tier, organizations employ a dynamic, data-driven approach to cybersecurity governance, leveraging real-time risk intelligence, automated compliance monitoring, and executive-led cybersecurity strategies. Cybersecurity risk governance is fully integrated into enterprise risk management, ensuring continuous alignment between security, business objectives, and emerging threats. A global technology company at this level may use AI-driven risk analytics, real-time threat intelligence platforms, and predictive risk modeling to continuously refine governance strategies and adapt to evolving cyber threats proactively. Cybersecurity risk governance aligns with multiple controls in the National Institute of Standards and Technology Special Publication 800-53, ensuring that organizations implement structured risk governance frameworks. One key control is PM-9 Risk Management Strategy, which requires organizations to define, document, and continuously refine their approach to cybersecurity risk management. A healthcare provider implementing this control may establish a cybersecurity governance board, conduct regular risk assessments, and integrate security strategies into overall healthcare risk management planning. Another key control is GV.OC-01 security governance, which mandates that organizations establish leadership-driven cybersecurity governance models, ensuring that executive leadership and security teams collaborate on risk decision-making. A financial services firm implementing this control may appoint a chief information security officer to oversee cybersecurity strategy, present risk updates to the board, and implement a risk governance framework that aligns with banking security regulations. Cybersecurity risk governance also aligns with PM-4 risk assessment, which requires organizations to regularly evaluate cyber risks, document findings, and integrate risk insights into governance strategies. This control ensures that organizations proactively identify emerging threats, assess vulnerabilities, and refine governance frameworks based on real-time security intelligence. A manufacturing company implementing this control may conduct quarterly cybersecurity risk assessments, document security gaps, and adjust governance policies to align with evolving supply chain threats and regulatory compliance requirements. These controls can be adapted based on organizational size, industry, and operational complexity. A small business may implement a simplified cybersecurity governance structure, ensuring that executives receive periodic security briefings and allocate cybersecurity budgets based on risk assessments. A large enterprise may establish a dedicated cybersecurity governance board, formalize risk governance frameworks, and implement AI-driven risk intelligence systems to ensure that cybersecurity decisions align with enterprise-wide risk strategies. Organizations in highly regulated industries, such as finance, healthcare, and critical infrastructure, may require real-time cybersecurity risk reporting, compliance-driven governance structures, and continuous oversight from executive leadership and regulatory bodies to maintain adherence to industry security standards. Auditors assess cybersecurity risk governance by reviewing whether organizations have structured governance frameworks, documented risk management strategies, and executive-led cybersecurity oversight mechanisms. They evaluate whether organizations track cyber risks, align governance efforts with business objectives, and implement continuous improvement strategies. If an organization lacks a structured approach to cybersecurity governance or fails to involve executive leadership in risk oversight, auditors may issue findings highlighting governance deficiencies, misalignment between security policies and business objectives, and gaps in cybersecurity decision-making processes. To verify compliance, auditors seek specific types of evidence. Governance framework documentation and cybersecurity strategy reports demonstrate that organizations establish clear governance structures and integrate cybersecurity into enterprise risk management. Risk assessment findings and executive risk reports provide insights into whether organizations identify, document, and mitigate cyber risks through structured decision-making frameworks. Board meeting minutes and security governance committee records show whether executive leadership actively engages in cybersecurity discussions, approves security policies, and allocates resources based on cybersecurity risk assessments. A compliance success scenario could involve a financial institution that undergoes an audit and provides documented proof that cybersecurity governance frameworks, executive-led security strategies, and risk reporting mechanisms are fully integrated into enterprise risk management. Auditors confirm that cyber risk governance is aligned with banking regulations, executive leadership actively participates in security oversight, and governance policies are continuously updated based on evolving cyber threats. In contrast, an organization that lacks a structured cybersecurity governance framework or fails to engage leadership in cyber risk decision-making may receive findings for insufficient cybersecurity governance, weak risk oversight, and regulatory noncompliance. And organizations face multiple barriers in implementing effective cybersecurity risk governance. One major challenge is lack of executive engagement. where leadership teams view cybersecurity as a technical issue rather than a business priority, leading to low investment in governance frameworks and inconsistent security oversight. Another challenge is poor integration between cybersecurity and enterprise risk management, where cybersecurity risks are managed in isolation rather than being embedded into broader risk governance strategies, resulting in misaligned security efforts. A final challenge is failure to allocate resources for cybersecurity governance, where organizations lack dedicated cybersecurity leadership, governance committees, or risk assessment teams, making it difficult to establish structured governance frameworks. Organizations can overcome these barriers by embedding cybersecurity governance into executive leadership discussions, integrating cyber risk management into enterprise-wide governance strategies, and implementing automated risk intelligence platforms, investing in cybersecurity governance training for leadership, establishing board-level cybersecurity oversight committees, and enforcing risk-based decision-making frameworks ensures that executives, security teams, and business stakeholders collaborate effectively to manage cyber risks. Standardizing governance policies across departments, subsidiaries, and third-party partners ensures that cyber risk governance is consistently enforced, reducing cybersecurity gaps and ensuring enterprise-wide resilience. By embedding cybersecurity risk governance into strategic decision-making, organizations strengthen risk oversight, improve regulatory compliance, and build a long-term cybersecurity governance framework that adapts to evolving threats. That wraps up today's discussion on framework. Don't stop here. Head over to cyberauthor.me to explore more cybersecurity topics and discover a best-selling book covering NIST and other critical cyber frameworks. Please like, rate, and review this episode on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, remember that knowledge is power.